In this case, that spark came from advances in forensic science. By 2010, DNA testing had become far more precise and reliable than it had been in the late 90s. Databases had expanded, and the ability to cross-reference samples was stronger than ever. Investigators decided to retest the evidence collected from the scene, and this time they got a match. The DNA pointed to someone who had been just 18 years old at the time of the incident, a man named Joseph Stephen Wright. The news of his arrest in December 2018 hit Sudbury like a thunderclap. After more than 20 years of waiting, there was finally a name. And it wasn't the name of a stranger from far away. It was someone who had been living in Sudbury all along. Wright had gone to high school at Lockerberry Composite, just a short walk from the video store where Renee had worked. After 1998, he had gone on with his life. He attended university, worked in healthcare, and built a career. For 2 decades, he lived quietly while the case remained unsolved. And then, suddenly, it wasn't. The arrest was a shock. People who had gone to school with Wright were stunned. Neighbors who had known him as an adult couldn't believe it. For Renee's family, it was a moment of complicated emotions. Relief that there was finally a name, finally a person to hold accountable, but also grief because no matter what happened next, it wouldn't bring Renee back. The trial began in February 2023, 25 years after Renee's death. It was one of the most closely watched trials in Sudbury's history. The courtroom was packed every day with family members, journalists, and community members who had carried the story in their hearts for decades. The Crown laid out its case carefully. They walked the jury through the timeline of January 27, 1998. They presented the evidence collected at the scene. They explained the DNA analysis that linked Wright to the discarded jacket and gloves. Witnesses testified about seeing a young man fleeing the store that morning. Police officers described the painstaking investigation, the years of work, and the moment in 2018 when Wright was finally arrested. The defense pushed back, arguing that the evidence wasn't conclusive, that there were other possible explanations. They pointed to the fact that Wright had lived an ordinary life for decades, suggesting that the Crown's case relied too heavily on DNA without enough context. But the jury listened closely. They heard the forensic experts who explained how the DNA was tested, retested, and confirmed. They heard from officers who carried the case for years, who spoke about the persistence it took to keep going when answers seemed so far away. They heard from the community members who remembered the day in 1998 when everything changed. The atmosphere in the courtroom was charged. On one side sat Renee's family and supporters who had waited 25 years for this moment. On the other side sat Wright's family, stunned that someone they loved was now at the center of such a case. Every day was heavy with emotion, every testimony a reminder of the weight of the past. After 5 weeks of testimony and just over a day of deliberation, the jury returned its verdict, guilty of second degree. When the verdict was read, the courtroom erupted. On Renee's family's side, there were tears, hugs, and cries of relief. People said, finally, Renee got justice. On Wright's side, there was silence. Wright himself sat still, dressed neatly, listening as the words were read. He was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 25 years. His lawyers quickly announced plans to appeal, but for Renee's family and the Sudbury community, the verdict was a long-awaited moment of accountability. So what do we make of this story? First, it's about persistence. The Sudbury police never gave up. They preserved the evidence, they revisited the case, and when science caught up, they were ready. Second, it's about the community. For 25 years, Sudbury carried Renee's name. They marked anniversaries, they told her story, they refused to let her be forgotten. And finally, it's about remembering the person at the center of it all. Renee wasn't just a case. She was a 23-year-old music student, a daughter, a sister, a friend. She had a life and she mattered. So that's the story of the Renee Sweeney case, the cold case that haunted Sudbury for 25 years and the eventual trial that brought resolution. It's a story of loss, persistence, and community. It's a reminder that even when answers take decades, they can still come. Don't forget to follow, like, and share. It helps more people discover these stories and keeps the conversation going. Thanks for listening to Crime Time 911. Stay safe, stay curious, and remember to always trust your gut.